In this video, we are going to see 3 different ways on how can we automatically enumerate a list, a data entry in Excel. Anytime you add here a new value, let's say ABC, enter, as we can notice, I have a new number added to my sequence, to my list, to my data entry. We can also use table with this methodology. Let's say every time I add here a new row with data, as we can notice, a new sequence number is going to be added to me. And we also have the third method where we can add up here new values. And as we can notice, new numbers are going to appear in my sequence. We can use the function sequence coupled with the CountA. And of course, this methodology works in the most recent versions of Excel. However, you can also use the sum function coupled with the table if you have older versions of Excel, or if you are in the middle, you can use if coupled with the row function. So let's find out how can we create those solutions with 3 different examples and different functions. Let's go. Let's get started by the first example where we can use sequence coupled with the CountA function. And with both of those functions, we can automatically enumerate lists, tables, data entries in Excel. Of course, we can find both of those functions in the versions Excel 365, Web, and 2021. However, if you have an older version of Excel, I'm going to show different examples to help you out, okay? But if you have the most recent versions, of course, you can use this first solution. Let's get started by the sequence function. Equals, sign, and then sequence. Double click 1, 2 to select. Let's say the first argument that I want to use is the row. I want to specify 15 rows and then enter. This is going to retrieve 15 different numbers and create a sequence with 15 numbers, starting with the number 1 and going all the way until I get 15 numbers. If I double click in the first cell 1, 2 to open up, and I can change the settings. Let's say now I want to use 10 rows, comma. The second argument is going to be the columns. However, I don't want to create a sequence using columns or to grow to the right, but only to grow down using the rows. So let me input another comma to skip this criteria. Start. What is the number where I want to start with? Let's say I want to start with the number 10. So enter. I'm going to have a different sequence now with 10 numbers, however, starting with the number 10. And if I want to double click again, change the 10 to, let's say, 101, enter. The sequence is going to change again, starting in a different point. But anyway, this is how we can use the sequence in Excel to help us. But there's a problem with the sequence function. It's not going to automatically update or to add a new row. Let's say 1, 2 in the sequence, I want to start with 5 rows and then enter. Here I'm going to have my numbers. Here I'm going to have the item name. And then in the last column, I want to have the value. Okay, the item name here is going to be item A and so forth. So I have many different items. Let's pretend those are different. I have some values and so forth. If I input a new item such as item C, enter, I'm not going to have a new number here, a new number to the sequence. That way we can notice that the sequence function is a very good function. However, we need to manually change the rows criteria. So this is going to be maybe too much laborious, let's say. To get rid of this manual work, let me get rid of those columns. Now let's use the CountA function within the sequence to, instead of manually set the number of the rows, we can count how many rows we currently have and then retrieve as a result of the rows argument within the sequence function. So let's get a look here. As the first column, I can have the numbers. In the second one, the value, and then maybe we can have the item name. just a example, let's say, of a inventory, a transactions of inventory. Let me select all those 3 columns. In between one and another, click, hold, and drag to the right to make sure we can increase the width, to make sure we can create this automatic enumeration, let's say. We can use equal sign sequence function 1, 2, and to know what is the amount of rows that I need to retrieve, I can use within this argument the CountA function 1, 2, okay. But what is the value that the CountA function is going to count? I can use the entire column D. Okay, entire column D. That's it. Let me close parentheses, and let me close parentheses again 2 times, and then enter. As we can notice, I have the number 1 as result. But why is that? Because in the column D, that is this column right here, I only have one information, which is the header. But if I add up here a different information, a new one, item 0005, enter, I'm going to have a different number right here, because now I have 1, 2 different informations. But if I only have one row of information, despite the header, don't want to consider the header, I need to get rid of this second number. So what I can do is 1, 2 in the first cell, okay? Now we're going to have the CountA function as an argument, and immediately after the first parenthesis here, the close parenthesis, I need to subtract 1, minus 1, and then enter. That way I will always get rid of one number of the sequence. And basically we are getting rid of the count of the header. Now let me add here a different item 1, enter. I'm going to have a different number to my sequence. Item B, item A, item C, and so forth. As we can notice, as I add here a new item, a new number is going to be added to the sequence. And this is because I'm using the CountA function to count everything that I have, okay? And remember, the -1 is very important to offset the sequence up, let's say, to get rid of the last number, the last sequence number. Now let's move on to a different example where we can use the table in Excel coupled with a sum function. Of course, this method here can be very useful if you have older versions of Excel. So let's get started by creating as the first column the numbers, and then we can have the item name, the value. I'm just creating here a random data set. However, you can use a real one. Item name, value, and maybe we can have quantity. Okay, let me increase all those 4 different columns evenly, let's say. And I want to transform this data set into a table. However, before I do it, let's first set the sum function. That is going to be equal sign, sum, double click, 1, 2. I want to use the previous value, that is the value that I have above, comma, add to 1, so plus 1, or only 1, close parenthesis, and then enter. Okay, simple as that. As the item, I can start with something very similar that we did before. Item A, value 9.74, and quantity 10, let's say. Okay. Now let me select everything. I can also align in the middle and center, and then insert table. Make sure this option is checked, is marked. My table, yes, has headers. Okay. And that's it. Now every time I add up here a new item name or a new value or a new quantity, let's say, enter, I'm going to have a new number to my sequence. Let's add a new quantity. And as you guys can see, new numbers are going to be automatically added to my sequence. And this is because 1, 2, I'm using a very simple solution with the sum function. That is the previous value added to 1. Okay, simple as that. Now the last method that we can use is with the if function coupled with the row function. And this, again, is only available on the most recent versions of Excel. But anyway, maybe if you have a recent version, you can use this solution if you prefer, instead of using the last two that I showed. But anyway, again, we can have the numbers, we can have something else, let's say description, and so forth. Let me increase both of those columns. Anytime I add up here a new description, such as A, B, C, I want to add new numbers. How can I do it? I can use the if function coupled with the row. The row function basically works doing a retrieve of the current row that you are at, such as equal sign, row, double click, 1, 2, and then enter. As we can notice, the result is equal to 7 because I'm current at the row number 7. If I go here to this cell and then equal sign, row, double click, 1, 2, and then enter, I can notice 22 is the result because I'm currently in the row 22. So how it works is very simple, and we can use the row function within the if function. But let's say I don't want to use the number 7 as the first number of my first row of data. I want to use the number 1. So what I can do is I can subtract 7 minus 7 because I'm starting in the row 7, okay? If you're starting in the row, let's say 20, maybe you should subtract 20 and so forth. Enter. Okay, now I have 0. So let's, instead of use -7, -6, and then enter. Yeah, that's it. It's working. If I click at the bottom right corner, hold and drag down, I can have the sequence to all the other rows, the rows underneath. However, where I don't have any description or any data, I don't want to show the numbers. So this is where we can use the if function, because if the description is equal to blank or open and close quotations, so I want to get rid of the numbers. I also want to get a blank result. Let me get rid of everything here, and then equals sign if function, double click, 1, 2, if the description that I have to the right is equal to blank or open and close quotations, comma, so I want to have a blank cell, open and close quotations. However, if it's not true, I want to have comma, a row function, double click, 1, 2, close parentheses, and then -6, like we did before. Close parentheses again, and we're good to go. Let's hit enter, and that's it. If I click, hold, and drag this function down, copy to all the rows that I have, as we can notice, we're going to have a blank result, but we're going to have numbers where we have a description. And if I add a description right here, let's say ABC, enter, I'm going to have a new value, a new number to my sequence. So this is how we can create 3 different automatically enumerations in Excel. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or any suggestions, let me know, comment down below, and I see you in the next one. So peace out.